Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, January 19th, 2024. This is episode 850 of Living Free in Tennessee, and it is a Friday show. So it's Homestead Happenings with the Tactical Redneck. I see Margot, Pippinized, and Packrat are already in the live stream commenting. And here's the deal, guys. It's been snowy. Actually, I'm looking at my computer, but you guys are up over there on the camera. So we have had cold Mageddon. I don't know that even last year it got as cold as it got cold this year. What do you think, Tactical? No?
At least not for this long.
Right. Well, I thought we got to -5 last year that one night, but then it like quickly broke. So, that was to this time it got cold and didn't get warm. And then tonight it's going to be 8 degrees and tomorrow it's going to be 3 degrees. Some say -3 degrees. We're getting up to 19 tomorrow. This is my coffee noise. What do you guys think about that? So I was making coffee and Dawn gave me some heavy cream, which I froze some of it and I've defrosted some this week. And what I learned is that when you defrost heavy cream, it comes out in chunks. And if you don't heat the coffee after putting it in, it stays in chunks. But if you heat it, it kind of melts into the coffee like butter. So I was making my coffee so that Tactical could go make his while we're doing this. Anyway, tickets go on sale tomorrow for the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop. And I was going to let you know all about who. Hello, Angie, Rewilder, Hilltop Home Place. I was going to tell you all about who, we had some people apply because I offered people $100 off. And so we have Donald Young doing a session on, working through when hard things happen, because he had a really hard thing happen a couple years ago. He called us in the middle of the night. I have my phone on silent in the middle of the night, so I didn't get that call, but Tactical got that call. Do you remember getting that call, Tactical?
Yes.
And it was really cool because of Self-Reliance Festival, we have a relationship with him. And he felt like our relationship was strong enough to reach out. And that was really important because he needed to talk to somebody. And Tactical took that call. And since then, he has had to work through the emotional parts of what happened. He's going to share that story and how he built his life, because we're talking about back to the basics this year. Brian Aguilar has put in to do, let's see, here's the deal, fire starting in different ways. So that one's going to be really cool. And then we have David Wright with his rainwater collection system. And Sarah Whittakin has been proposing this for a couple of years, and I've never really had space for it. But she's like, hey, I'd really like to do one of two things. One is how to make hot processed soap, which I think we'll ask her to do. But she also wanted to talk about how to bake bread for those of you who are bread eaters. And one of the things we will talk about is how to make bread. I used to make bread from home ground wheat, and we've just stopped eating bread. But if I'm going to eat bread, it's got to be nice bread most of the time. Every so often I cheat on myself. I poison myself with store bread because I want a sandwich or something. But it's so much better with homemade bread. And so those are the 4 people who got a spot on the speaking agenda for $100 off. And tickets go on sale Saturday. By the way, they are just hearing about this now, except because I was going to send the emails before this show and then ice. So they're going to get the emails after the show. So if they're listening to this show, they're finding out for the first time that they were chosen for that. So anyway, tickets go on sale tomorrow morning at livingfreeintennessee.com. And it's a $200 deposit to hold your spot. It's refundable for up to a week in case you change your mind. But after that, it's non-refundable. We use those deposits to buy things to run the workshop. But you can transfer it to anybody. So that's sort of the deal on that. And we've got Porterhouse coming to talk about how to develop water on your property when you don't have water. He's also going to talk about building a YouTube channel, because he went from 3,000 to 30,000 in 4 months followers once he put his mind to it. And he's going to tell you how he did that. He's like, I'm not the biggest YouTube channel in the world, Nicole. I'm like, I know, but you built it, and you built it by using the principles people need to use to build a YouTube channel. So I think that's going to be really cool. Toolman Tim's going to come talk about pushing through failure. Failure is not an option when you decide to build something. He's going to talk about his experience with that mindset. We've got John Pugliano coming to talk about investing and building your wealth from day one. Ah, so delicious. Holler roast in your cup. And then also, like we've just got a lot of cool speakers. Sean Mills will be there talking about going back to the basics on your homestead, which is great if you have a homestead that's not working the way you want it to and you need to rejig it. Or if you're like an aspirational homesteader, you'll learn from his mistakes. He's redoing his whole homestead after being off of his homestead for about 3 years. So it's like a good chance to do the whole thing. And yeah, so Real Wilder says failing up. I call it failing forward because sometimes you do fail and that is what it is. But when you take that as a lesson instead of a failure and then build something, then that's awesome. Chestnut also would like to join the live stream for a pet head because she thinks it's breakfast time, and it probably is because she did not get breakfast yet. Anyway, so it's going to be a really fun event. We do, food that's awesome from the homestead. I'll probably get Chef Brett to help us with a few meals on this one. We'll see if he can. I'm sure, 100% sure, we're going to have the famous keto-friendly Salisbury steaks that everybody loves. Like, it's over the top delicious. So even if he can't be here, we'll have those and we'll make that with the beef that we got from here so that it's like all pure ingredients. It's delicious, among other things. So anyway, tickets go on sale tomorrow, 9 in the morning, livingfreeintennessee.com. I also want to thank our 2 show sponsors today, one of which is breakfast for Chestnut. No, let's see. Okay, we got Discount Mylar Bags. Discount Mylar Bags has been supporting me and the show for a long time, before there was even a sponsorship opportunity. When I started Holler Roast Coffee, he reached out and said, hey, send me some of your bags. I'll see if I can do better on price. And he did. And he sourced like a boat ton of bags. We have gone through all those bags now. So we're doing the next boat ton of bags. And he has kept my prices very reasonable. I think the biggest cost is shipping for that. So when I can pick them up, it's better. But for y'all, he has really great resources at discountmylarbags.com. On the right-hand side of his website is a whole bunch of food storage principles and like how to size your O2 absorber and what size bags to get. He has changed my mind about what size bags to get. I am a fan of multiple smaller bags, even though it costs a little bit more rather than one giant bag for most things, because I'll actually use what's in the smaller bag. And he's the one who changed my opinion on that. He also has a member discount. If you are a member of Living Free in Tennessee, log in, get your discount code. And that's all over at discountmylarbags.com. Our second sponsor of today's show is Paul Wheaton from Permies.com. They're always cooking up something special there. But this week, I just wanted to talk about the amazing forum that they have over at Permies.com. It's free. You just go set up an account at Permies.com, go in there, and you can start learning about permaculture practices, gardening, natural building, energy efficiency, all of these things. And the thing about this forum, this is the only old style forum I know that's functional. You don't end up with like weird trolling going on or anything, because they have a great group of moderators there. And so when somebody asks a question like, how can I grow tomatoes in the South without blight? And then somebody says, well, I've been experimenting with putting aspirin in with my tomatoes, and I've discovered that the late blight, while it does come, it comes lighter and it does not kill the tomatoes, and I get a fall crop. So it's real world experience you're getting. They vet that. And if somebody puts some BS answer, they get rid of it. And if somebody's just putting social stuff like, oh man, this is a problem for me too, they leave them there because you want conversation. But a month or 2 later, they kind of cleaned it up so that the chain has the information a person would want to know. So this is like the old days when you could enter in Google a search question and get an answer that was fairly reasonable. It's kind of like that at Permies.com, and it's a free account. So I recommend you head over to Permies.com, get signed up, check it out. I was really hesitant to set up an account because I don't need one more thing to look at. And then I did, and I was like, oh, yeah, no, this is worth my time. And me saying that's a big deal, because do I have time? No. I don't have a lot of time for stuff. So that's the deal. Okay. So, tactical. When I asked you today what you wanted to talk about in today's show notes, what'd you say?
I don't know. It was something cold.
It was something cold. I was like, yeah, we know it's cold, but we need specific stories about cold for this show to be entertaining. Also, guys, in the live stream, if you want to put any questions that we see, just put the first word in all caps. I see Homestead Medical like to know if you're injury free. Have you made it through Cold Mageddon without an injury so far?
Yes.
You're gonna knock on some wood.
I mean, that still hurts, and the cold is making it worse. But
That's a previously existing injury, though.
yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, so far I've only almost eaten it on a garden hose that's still in the yard once.
So one of our first lessons about getting ready for Cold Mageddon and snow in Tennessee is that having the hoses pre-staged on the ground so that they're nice and can drain is awesome unless it snows and you can't see them, and then you trip on them and almost sprain your ankle.
Yeah, and that's something I'm well aware of, the fact that you do not want to find a garden hose in the snow by stepping on it. But when I was going through the pre-snow checklist, I didn't even think about that one.
Why do you know that lesson? Is it from living somewhere else?
No, that's just from experience here. It's like, I learned that lesson by stepping on a hose and almost eating it. And so it's something that, I know better than to leave it like that. But it was like, in preparation for this with everything else, it was just like, I didn't even think about it.
Yes. First thing he said to me on the first morning was like, hey, there's hoses out there. And sure enough, I'm like, there's one right there where I walk. There's one right there where I walk. And I've been carefully stepping over hoses all week. A lot of people, so we've had some like scuttlebutt on our county, like our community group on Facebook, people mad that people don't get out on the snow, right? And you're going to go mute my phone because now it's talking. I forgot to mute Zello before we went live. Other people are like, it's not the same here. Don't worry about it. It's fine. And Tactical's first comment was that he's lived in Maine. In Maine, they get feet of snow and it gets very cold and it stays very cold. So Tactical, what's different about Tennessee for Cold Mageddon, where we went down to -4 one day, it's been snowing, it's been cold every day? Like, what's the difference between this and Maine, in your opinion?
I mean, there's several differences. Like, the cold in Maine was definitely more brutal. There's no question about that. The difference, though, is like, when it got cold in Maine, it got cold. And it stayed cold. Here, it's like, last week it was 50-something degrees, and I had to unzip my fleece because I was sweating. And then, the next week we're at 0. And then yesterday it was like we got warm enough for everything to start to melt. So my nice packed snow path going between the house and the cabin is now a sheet of ice.
It is a really good sledding hill now.
No, it's not.
Why not?
It's not straight. And there's a couple of jumps if you were going to sled.
I mean, I kind of like jumping on sleds. You want me to jump on sleds this week?
There's literally a dirt berm.
I think my funniest moment with Tactical is when I made the video about sledding, because I am going to sled if it's possible. I go, okay, we got to make this video today and get it out there. Everybody's asking for it. And he gives me this look like I don't want to do that. I'm like, why don't you want to do that? Do you remember what you said? You said, I don't want to drive you to the emergency room.
Oh, there was that.
I was like, I don't have so I did injure myself once on a sled here in a snowstorm, and it was going down the pasture. Like, we went up from the cabin and down the pasture.
Surprising at all.
Yeah, it's a very steep hill. And I was on the kind of sled that has the track, like the old-fashioned wood one with the 2 tracks, which I grew up on those. I'm very proficient. But I did go over a jump and flip and roll, and it did injure my shoulder. But I didn't have to go to the emergency room. All I get's the sigh. Like, he's like, this is the lady who won't drive the 4-wheeler up super steep hills, but she'll totally hurl down the hill on a sled. I don't get it. Do you get it?
Yeah, no.
It's because I grew up skiing, and so I'm pretty comfortable on slidey, slopey things, but not on four wheels on slidey, slopey things.
Yeah, well, I had to take the 4-wheeler up there the other day, and it was sketch.
Yeah. Why did you have to take the 4-wheeler up, Tactical? Tell them that story. Who was out yesterday when you got out to the sheep?
So I had to swap the battery for the fence charger, which is, I say, halfway up the hill. There's a plateau halfway up the hill, and that's where the fence charger is. So it's basically in the middle of the pasture. And it's like there's one path to get up there right now, and it's one of the worst paths because it's steep. And so I get over there on the 4-wheeler, I open the gate, and for whatever reason, both dogs decided to sprint for it, which normally does not happen. And so I sit there and I call, and I call, and I call. And by this time, I've got the 4-wheeler in, and I went on and closed the gates. The sheep didn't get out, and dogs are like going up the hill towards the ridge, and I can't get a hold of Nicole, and this and that and the other. So finally, I'm like, all right, I'm just going to book it up the hill. And when I say book it, I'm going to drop into third gear and get across the relatively level part of the pasture, and then drop back down into first. And I knew the path that I was going to take. So I start going up, and it's like I'm in 4-wheel, and I can just feel wheels just slipping. And I'm like, oh, please, please, please. Just whatever happens, don't let me go backwards. And I managed to get up to a certain spot, and then I was able to turn and go kind of sideways a little bit. And fortunately, the steepest part is also full sun, so it had kind of melted a good bit right there. So I hit that and got some traction and made it the rest of the way up. Unbeknownst to me, once I get up to the top and I get stopped, and I'm like, okay, the 4-wheeler's not going to slide back down the hill. I look down the hill. Who's at the gate? Max is at the gate because he heard me on the 4-wheeler. I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. So I, as fast as I could, swapped the battery out, and it's like my inclination is just to haul it back down the hill, and I knew that was a horrible idea. So I sat there and forced myself to think about my path down for a second, and it's like, okay, start going, and going down was so much easier. Like, I expected to not have full steering, but it worked. And then I hit one area where it's steep, but I know the terrain well enough to know that there's rock over there, there's rocks over there, and there's nothing across here. So I turned and went that way and went fast. And let the one dog in, and the other showed up shortly thereafter.
And the reason we didn't have communications, and this is something we need to be more purposeful about when he goes to the pasture, I had restarted my phone because it was misbehaving. And I did not know when I restart my phone that the communication app we use does not fire up until I log into the phone and it finishes sort of rebooting itself. He called me twice, and it did not come across as Tactical. It came across as your phone number.
That's weird.
So I was like, oh, that's spam. And I was in the middle of roasting coffee, so I kind of ignored it. And then I was just walking into the house when you drove up, and I saw that it was, then my phone booted up. It said that it was you. And I was like, oh, crap. I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, I am now.
Yeah. And that was also one of those days where it's just like brutal cold, which I'm not.
How is the cold different here than in Maine?
I mean, I think it's more like piercing here. Like Maine, if you were outside in the winter and it was just a calm day, but it was cold, it was just cold. if you were like, there was one place where I lived because I used to walk to downtown because it was like a mile walk, and there's a spot where you go across the river, and a lot of times the wind would just be ripping, and that part sucked. But once you got across the bridges, like everything's cool. It's just cold. Here it's like you can put on as many layers of clothes as you want to. It's like if you've ever, for me, I feel it the most on a four wheeler because you got gloves on, but you're having to push with your thumb for the throttle, and your thumb gets cold because you've got it pushed in like that. So you're crushing all the insulation on your gloves. It's like that. Here it's like that for your whole body. Like it doesn't matter how much clothes you put on, it still just seems to just cut through it.
If it would be colder for longer, our humidity level would drop dramatically, and I think it would not feel as cold. I think the reason it feels so cold here is we still have moisture in the air.
Yeah.
And then that penetrates. Because I know from living in Oregon, when it rained in Oregon all freaking winter long, it'd be in the 40s and I'd be just ice bone cold. I come out here and it's freezing. And I'm like, because it's drier here than Oregon.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference, the humidity, and then also your body acclimates to the environment you're in. So, people say I could never live in the South because of the humidity. I'm like, well, if you go to the South and give your body a bona fide chance to acclimate, which means not hiding in the air conditioning all the time, it will start after a year or two. You'll just start being more acclimated to that. And I mean, it doesn't mean work outside all day long in the sun, killing yourself with heat exhaustion, which is also a thing. But it does get easier. And I know when I lived in Oregon, I moved to Southern Oregon, which had much warmer summers than Portland. And when I moved back to Portland, I literally turned the heat on in June in Portland because I was freezing because being used to the warmer temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
So part of it is just the body acclimates to where you are. And if you're in a cold climate, like if I were to travel to Colorado right now for a winter, the first couple of weeks would suck, and then I would start getting used to it.
Yeah, and that's the other difficult part about here is you can't really acclimate that much because, I said last week I was sweating. Next week we're supposed to be high 50s, low 60s. So we're going right back up to really nice weather. Especially, it's going to feel awesome after this week. So you can't, like, this is the part of the year where you just can't acclimate to anything.
Yeah, people in the comments are like, the humidity is nothing compared to insert other place. When I moved to Tennessee, I was prepared for Washington, D.C. scale humidity, which is way worse than here.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I've been through summers in the DC metropolitan area. I can make it in the South. Totally different level of humidity there versus here because it kind of blows off in Tennessee. I mean, it's always more humid here, but it blows off at night or whatever. And so you don't usually just have the sticky come and stay and never leave. But if you're coming here from Arizona, and I see that somebody from Arizona, Survivalizers, in the comments, you're going to notice the humidity because it's not humid in Arizona at all. And like drying clothes on the rack here takes days, not hours. Drying clothes at my sister's house on the rack in California, it takes hours. Even if it's not warm. Like here, like right now, I dried clothes overnight by putting them on a rack in my living room, which has a wood stove going.
Yeah.
In the summertime, it's days. And if it's super humid outside, I'll just use the clothing dryer in the summer because it does a better job. So
yeah, and I also could see that too because I spent most of my career, I spent my entire career stationed on the coast where the humidity is always higher. So, you live in Maine, and I'd go to my buddy's place down in New Hampshire, which was further inland. And it's like it felt so much better when I went out to visit him because the humidity wasn't as high.
Yeah.
mean, I am well accustomed to the humidity. I actually prefer humidity over dry. Well, at least when it comes to heat. But yeah, I mean, even like coastline, you drive an hour inland and it's different.
Yep. So, featured forage. What are you finding out about to forage for food?
I do have a Brussels sprout.
That's
in
not
my-
forage, like wild stuff.
There's snow.
Yeah. So snow ice cream is on the make it list, except for we're not going to make snow ice cream. I'm not finding any forage. If I needed to find forage, I'd have to dig through the snow. It's possible to do that. Mushrooms are not growing right now.
I actually saw green grass today.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know, but I was over at the pasture and there was a spot like that big in where there was bare ground and there was like 15, 20 blades of green grass in that one spot. I was like, oh, that's interesting. It's also in a place with full shade.
Huh. Maybe some of the water table gets up near there and it's just keeping it warmer.
Maybe it's by the wash.
Okay, yeah, it's probably a microclimate.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get these. It's interesting to watch an event like this because you start seeing interesting microclimates. Like we have a thing called air conditioning cave, which comes up by the road. And it is written about in histories of this road that are 100 years old, where kids used to go up to the cave in the summer and stand in front of it, and the air coming out of it was cooler. And it got the name air conditioning cave over the years. Right now, that's heat cave. If you walk up to it, because the air coming out is 55 to 60 degrees, because water is in that cave and the air is coming out of the ground. Yeah, you should check it out. It's actually kind of fun. Like today, especially, it's dropping to 8 degrees. Like it'll feel warm.
Yeah.
If you were stuck in a blizzard and couldn't get back here from there, which would be weird, but I would climb in that thing.
Yeah.
Because it's like what the ducks do with the pond. So what are the ducks doing with the pond? Because we're on to livestock now. Forage is not a big thing this week here.
The ducks have basically just been living in the pond. So they've come up, like there was one day I walked up, I think it was one of the warmer days, and they were actually up at the coop like around bedtime, or at least half of them were. So I've been at least once a day putting food out around bedtime, call the ducks, they'll go up, eat, and then go straight back down to the pond. And then, like yesterday, I said it was actually entertaining because you got the water comes in on one side of the pond and goes out on the other, and where it goes out, that side's been freezing up a little bit. So there's a layer of ice on the top. So yesterday when I called them, I actually watched, and they were getting out of the water onto the ice instead of just getting literally that far from the ground.
Ducks don't give a truck about this weather.
Across the ice, and it was funny because you see people like when they do the foot shuffle on the ice.
Yeah,
thing, they were doing that going across the ice, so it was actually fairly amusing to watch.
Too bad you didn't get video of that.
I know.
Maybe we should get video of it tonight.
We might be able to.
I bet we could stage that up. Duck ice skating rink.
But yeah, they've got the one end of the pond has been not frozen, so they've all just been living in the water basically.
Yeah, so the ducks did not freeze. They do stay in the water. The water comes out of the ground at 55 degrees. Where they're staying is where it comes out of the ground. Yeah. Like air conditioning cave, only it's water. And my ducks will not freeze.
Yeah.
And so far, no predators have figured out what's going on. Like usually we close them up at night, but we've just let them be there because it's warmer and it's absurd how cold it's getting here. The chickens have primarily stayed in the coop. and I fed them some whey yesterday. By I mean Tactical actually brought that one down. And they decimated it. So he poured that in last night. I came up and their whole thing was completely empty. So that was interesting. So I'll just keep feeding whey. It's a little bit of nutritional augmentation. Tactical, give it to the ducks. We'll see if the Eversoles want any for their chickens. What I usually do with whey is turn it into garden augmentation. I often will glean the ricotta cheese out of it. We're not doing that this time because I'm not taking the time to get a tiny amount of extra milk fat out of that at this hot minute. And it doesn't hurt to feed it to the animals. So, and I will talk about, I guess I put a post on Facebook today about making cheese. I made a lot of cheese yesterday because I was out of cheese and we're doing the pantry challenge and I'm not allowed to go to the store, but I had milk so I could make cheese. So that's kind of cool. On the first day of the snowstorm, after it had like snowed all night, and there was like 6 inches when we got up that morning, Tactical went down to make sure the sheep had water and all of that, and Max was missing. Max is one of our livestock guardian dogs. Where'd you find Max?
On the opposite side of the pond from the barn. So I go over there and I see a bunch of sheep come out of the barn. I see a dog come out of the barn. I'm like, cool, everybody's in the barn. So I go into the barn. I count 11 head of sheep and I count one dog. Where is the other dog? Usually Max is the dog that's the first one to come greet me. And so it's like, okay, look over here, look over there, look under the thing. Then you find a hole to crawl back under the one room in the barn that has a subfloor and get himself stuck again. No, can't get in there. Look all over the place. Cannot find Max at all. So finally I go walking around the barn, start walking beside the pond, and I see this whitish gray blur blob thing full belly out in the snow, just sitting there gnawing on a rabbit popsicle. Did not pay any attention to me whatsoever. Did not care that I was there. Just, it's, I have no idea what the temperature was. It was freezing. It was still snowing. But no, Max is just out there sprawled out in the snow, just gnawing on a solid frozen rabbit.
So last night it melted a little bit overnight. And what the reason Tactical was quiet is his mic was pointed down and not up.
Oh,
Yeah.
oops.
Fuzzy part up.
Well, it probably started out that way.
Yeah, I just turned it over. We'll keep our eye on that. He doesn't like his clothes don't do microphone clip-ons very well. I might have to clip it to your beard in the future.
Yeah, well, this is also a shirt that I don't normally wear.
Yes. Anyway, the sheep are grazing today. So they're eating through the snow and grazing because the snow melted enough, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I actually went over there a little bit before the live stream, and it's like one dog comes out of the barn. So I pulled past the barn a little bit and looked, and there's, patches of no snow, and the sheep are just over there poking around to see what they can find.
Yep. Lazy Gardener says they're hatching chickens this week. Bad planning. I've got somebody who I'm pretty sure is going to have baby lambs this week in our network. And
it's next week.
Yeah, hopefully after the next 2 days. But sheep seem to drop on the coldest days just for the fun of it.
I think there's something to that. I don't know what, but I think there's something to it.
So yeah, Saturday when it's 3 or -3 babies. I'll have to reach out to her and see how that's going. I think we would have seen pictures of babies had babies already been born.
Probably.
So now let's talk about what's growing. You can tell us about your Brussels sprout.
Yeah, that's the one thing I've got. The Brussels sprout in my AP appears to still be alive. Not happy about life. I forgot to look at that one rosemary too. There's 2 rosemary plants I had that were still alive. One of them is now dead.
Is it?
It definitely looks dead.
It may come back.
It might.
Rosemary plants will look dead and go dormant and come back. What happens in Tennessee is they come back, and then it's blackberry winter, and then they come back, and then it's whatever winter, and then they come back, and then it's final frost, and that final frost gets them.
Yeah.
So if it's just gone dormant, you'll be fine.
So I don't know. I'm not gonna pull that one, but I need to go look at the other one, which I have a lot more hopes that it's gonna survive. But yeah, aside from that, I think that's the only plant stuff that I have outside.
I transplanted Malabar spinach and longevity spinach into the same pot in my house before the first frost. The longevity spinach is still going. And in fact, I'm ready to take some and start another one, except we don't have an area for me to do that set up yet, which won't happen this weekend. And then I'll have multiple ones to transplant next year. It thrives in the heat and it's very easy to propagate. So I'm excited about that. The Malabar spinach gave up the ghost last week before the cold hit. And I think it was just not liking to share that pot with the spinach, but I only had one pot. And then I have sweet potato slips in the windowsill ready to go outside. They don't go outside till May or June though. So I actually have kept that going just because last year I didn't have any sweet potato slips. And then one of my sweet potatoes gave me a slip in like August or September. And I was like, well, you can just be an inside plant. But again, I only have one pot. So I have to get another pot and put some soil in it to turn that into a sweet potato plant, which is what I'm planning to do this year. And my tomato that I had that was like a dwarf tomato that gave me little cherry tomatoes in the winter, that died. That died during construction because it didn't get water while I was out of town. And so that's the pot where the longevity spinach is.
Yeah, I see that.
I kept that plant going for 2 years though, that tomato. So that's just life in my house. Stuff happens. So that's what's growing in the homestead. I haven't been up to the garden, but I did get leaf mulch down before all this snow. And snow actually serves as an insulator, which is kind of cool. For a period of time, yeah. So tonight when it's 8 degrees, that's helpful. My aquaponics system is not dead. So it made it through -4 and it's still going. There's a stock tank heater in there that keeps it, kind of near 32 degrees in the water, and then it circulates. So I was worried that the circulating would stop at that temperature, but it hasn't because the water is moving. So that's kind of cool. I also have it circulating rapidly right now. So it's not a slow drip. But I have not looked at the plants there because I have it covered with plastic. I don't want to look at the plants, but I kind of felt the plastic today and it is warmer because it's getting the warmth from the 36-degree water basically. So, yeah. Oh, they're saying okay, it got quiet again. Let's look at your mic. Is your mic on? We're going to look at mics for a second, guys, cuz the rumor is your mic is not on. That's interesting. So it was never going to get better.
Is it dead?
No, let's look. Anyway, well, crap. What's going on with you, Mr. Mike? Sometimes it works and sometimes there we go. That'll be way better. So thanks for continuing to give us whoever has their computer turned way up hates you right now. Thanks for continuing to give us feedback on the audio. I'm sorry, it was actually coming through my mic and not his mic, which you need to clip it up there though. Put it back where it was. Sheesh. 5 out of 5. Yeah. So if the audio's that, like, he's been telling all the stories for this live stream. That's bad. Thanks for hanging out with us through the bad audio, guys. I wonder how that's going to be on the audio podcast.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I do compress the crap out of that to try to get equalization because I'm just louder than you. So I always have to bring you up in temperature in that too.
I
But
would not argue with anybody bringing my body temp up right now.
yeah, so what I have been doing this week to bring his body temperature up in is when I hear he's going to the sheep, he's driving a 4-wheeler, which is cold because I did that this week once too. So I usually throw bone broth on the wood stove when he leaves so that when he comes back there's hot bone broth. Have you liked that?
Yes.
Let's talk about what sort of harvest meals we've had this week. What's your favorite one that you can think of that we had this week besides the bone broth?
That soup was good.
Which
I didn't eat
soup?
a lot of it.
The everything soup?
Cauliflower base.
Oh, so I've been doing the pantry challenge, and one of the ways I've been optimizing it for my own life is that I took out, we had leftover cauliflower bisque from the spring workshop last year. Obviously, I need to use it up. But the way we packaged it was in such large amounts that I was like hesitant to do it because once you take one of those out, you're like committed to cauliflower soup every day for a week. And I had leftover Indian style meat mixture, which I did an Indian curry because I did not have coconut milk for a Thai curry. And I took bits and bobs and odds and ends of meat from the one freezer, my use it up freezer. And I made a curry with some carrots and some green beans in it because that's what we had. And that was delicious. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I put whatever's left from that into the bisque. And then I had some other little pieces of roast beef and whatnot from the week, put it in there, heated it up, and it made that bisque even better. So there's actually 2 servings of that left. And then I froze the rest so that you can have the cauliflower chunk soup basically when I'm out of town at some point. Like I have what I've been doing because last year when I traveled, I think food was a little bit challenging for him. I've been putting a redneck sized servings of things in the freezer and labeling them hopefully in a way that makes sense and then taking them out before I leave because I always thought he would just go to the freezer and grab them, but he won't. And then he'll starve.
The problem there is it's like there's 5 freezers and it's Nicole shorthand labeling, so it's like no idea what this actually is.
Well, I wrote cauliflower soup. I hope that's good enough. I probably
That
said
probably
cauliflower
will.
soup with meat.
It's like sometimes I'll open something up and it's like, or I'll start digging through a freezer and it's like roast or lamb something. It's like I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, the other thing is we get labels at the spring workshop because my kitchen crew writes stuff up.
Yeah.
And then it's like you don't even know, and they'll be like lamb stew kit. That's not lamb stew. That's actually how we ended up with lamb bone stew. And what I was supposed to do was not eat the meat in that and just like filter out the bone broth, I think. But we ate the meat and chewed on the bones and spit out the bones because I didn't understand.
I found one that was like a 2-gallon vacuum sealed bag. It was labeled like pork broth kit or something, or stew base or something like that. It's like,
don't eat that.
It's like this appears to be like frozen broth or something, not meat. Why is it in my freezer?
Probably because we had, when the freezer went out, it was like what fits anywhere.
Yeah.
What fits anywhere is fun. Anybody else play the what fits anywhere game in their freezers? Because we play the what fits anywhere. This time, what fits anywhere was like all of this ground beef is our ground beef. You eat ground beef. Take as much ground beef as you can fit into your freezer and put it in your freezer and then tell me how many you took. That works pretty well.
Yeah, if you go look in my freezer right now, the top shelf is like a U-shape thing of ground beef. There's like a hole in the top for the air.
Yep. Because you want the circulation air. You don't want to actually block everything up in your freezer. Okay, next up. Oh, wait, anything else on harvest meals? Basically, I've mostly been cooking in my coated Dutch oven because it can go onto the wood stove. My wood stove has not typically been hot enough to cook. I've also noticed that my whatever catalytic converter or whatever that thing is that burns the gas at the top isn't burning as efficiently as it used to. So I think I need to clean that out. Yeah. So like one of them does well and the other one never reburns.
Yeah.
So that not surprising. I've had the stove, I don't know, a decade now, probably 8 to 10 years. Never cleaned those out.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I mean, it's doing a great job. It's actually often too warm in my living room. Right?
No.
The skinny guy says no. The chunky lady says yes.
No, I walked in the cabin, I don't know, 2-3 days ago. It's like, shoot the temp on the wall. It says 81. I was like, oh, it's actually really comfortable in here right now.
Yeah. I actually let it get a little cooler here the last 2 days because I needed to do a deep clean of my stove because let's talk about this. How are you managing wood in the cold?
Different ways for different times. Presently, I had 3 stacks of wood in the house that I specifically loaded up and did not touch like weeks ago because I knew we were really likely to have a week this week. And so I wanted some good dried out wood. So those 3 stacks are adjacent to my wood stove. And that's actually going to be like right on the edge. I might or might not run out of that wood by Sunday. So that's working out really well for me. And then I also have several other spots in the house where I've basically just got a couple of piles of extra wood to get it out of the Tennessee humidity so that it can start drying out a little bit. And I've definitely noticed, because all of this is from the same batch of firewood, and it's noticeable how well it burns once it's been inside for a while.
So wood in my house that's been in the house for 3 to 4 days burns better than wood that I take from directly outside my door.
Yeah.
Which burns better than wood I take from the pile. And part of that is because it rained like a mofo going into this. And so the humidity in the air absorbed into the wood. Plus, anytime your cover leaks a little bit, that piece of wood gets wet.
Yeah.
But they'll dry out, like seasoned wood will dry back out fairly quickly in your house, especially because the moisture level in your house, like people put humidifiers on their stoves for a reason, because it just sucks all of the humidity out of the air to heat with wood. Actually, heating, like forced air does that too. Just heating in general. So I have, and with the new floor and the new layout, I don't, like my other hearth was set up with storage in mind for piles of wood.
Yeah.
And I don't have that built into the floor plan now. So I have enough wood in a wood holder for 1 day if I'm burning heavy, 2 to 3 days if I'm burning normal. And that's that round thing over there.
Yeah.
So I set up a place over my window in the kitchen where I can have wood, and that fits 4 days of heavy burning. And I have them in individual stacks. So I do 3 logs one way, 3 logs another way, 3 logs one way, 3 till it's a tower. And I have them next to each other. And the reason I do that is I can do a whole tower and then move on to the next tower and then refill the tower before. And then in this way, cycle it through. So things are in my house at least 3 days to dry out from the humidity. When I do that, managing my fire is easier. When I don't do that and have to go straight from the wood pile, I'm on the struggle bus. And then with these extreme cold nights, what I'm doing is when I have a really good log, like it's Osage orange, or it's a big one that's oak that's well cured, I put it in the good log pile. So the good logs will go for hours in the middle of the night at a relatively high burn rate, putting heat out. And that means I get a little bit more sleep. Because that night that we went to -4, I put firewood on every hour to hour and a half all night long. And it wasn't that I set an alarm to do that. I just woke up, had to pee, looked at the fire. I'm like, yep, it's time again. And I kept the house pretty warm for keeping the pipes from freezing. Like, it was good. I wasn't losing the heat battle that time. I've had other times like that where I lose the heat battle and it's in the 40s in here on -0 degrees. So the construction has helped because I think a lot of it's these windows, these new
Yeah.
windows, and then the insulation of the floor, new insulation on that wall, like all of that's made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Moving the stove out of this corner to the middle of the room was great because it gets more out there.
Yeah.
And the only thing that gets kind of cold is my bedroom, which is not terrible because it's my bedroom.
Yeah, and that's the nice part about where my stove is the wall that it's up against is the wall in between the living room and my bedroom. And my doorway going into the bedroom is also right there. So my stove fan is actually pointed in the general direction of my bedroom door.
Yeah, I have a series of random fans and ceiling fans that help move air. I think long term, I will add some ducting to bring air from here into my bedroom because that I can turn on and off.
Yeah.
Just because that does get colder. But I realized, so at 5 degrees with my old windows, I have ice inside the house on the windows. I took a picture of that and uploaded it to the Dropbox, Letty, of ice inside my windows. And I realized something as a result of that, because these windows did not have ice, that my old windows, because they're aluminum, they give me ice inside. And that is a thing. And I think it makes a big difference in temperature. So I think it's not only that the air isn't getting to my bedroom, it is that it is also like going outside through that metal. So these are all things we learn when it gets really cold. So I'll get to watch that happen again tonight, because if we go to 8, I'm pretty sure I'll have ice on my windows too. So, oh, there's a dog outside. I was like, why is he walking outside? Because she gets cold and doesn't like it. Anyway, holler neighbors and community. Tonight we're going to do a shared meal, and we're going to have game night. And that's good because we're all snowed in. And I think they're definitely looking forward to having that. I don't know. I'm making pot roast tonight. So I don't know what they're making. I'm making pot roast. And then because we did the pantry challenge this month, I ran out of cheese except for Parmesan. And I've just been putting grated Parmesan on things you put, like grated cheddar or mozzarella. Don Gorham left 3 gallons of milk here last week. And I made 4 batches because I had some milk too. I made 4 batches of mozzarella last night while I was doing a power cleaning push. Is that what you'd call that?
Sure.
Because I was like, I did 5 loads of laundry yesterday, by the way. And I deep cleaned the mudroom. And the mudroom had, so here's something that's different. If I lived in a snowy environment, I would have to clean a mudroom, like deep clean once a week.
Yeah.
Because no matter how hard you try not to track stuff in when it's snowy, it just sticks to your shoes. So in order to get through this, I have like the boot tray, and that's fine, but you got to walk in and take the boots off. And sure, you could take them off outside, but it's cold out there, so nobody expects that. And then when the dogs come prancing in, they have little muddy feet. And I have a towel outside to clean their feet on the way in. But that doesn't always happen, right, Chestnut? That didn't just happen now. So the mud room, I ended up yesterday making cheese. Because it's like when you make cheese, you're like, do this and then wait for the temperature. And then do that and then wait for the temperature. And then do this and wait for it to set. Like, you have a lot of breaks in there. It was a really good time to run laundry, fold laundry, put laundry away, hang laundry to dry, deep clean the mudroom, which was also a declutter of the mudroom because stuff had just piled up in there this week from coming in and out from the cold and just like dumping it on the washing machine. And the floor is clean, but that having that mudroom actually means that the rest of my house is not just one big mud slick. Like I wish my floors were cleaner right now out here, but they're not like they would be had we just been like traipsing through without the mudroom. Because we used to come in through that door over there and it would sort of fall about halfway across the living room, even with boots off. But it's totally worth. So like I deep cleaned the mudroom, I mopped it. Nighthawk was here to take a shower because his water is not working right now. And yeah, that's another good thing about having neighbors, right? And the neighbor community is when your water's not working, everybody else's is. And I mopped the floor while he was in the shower. And then the first thing that happened is he stepped on the floor on the way out. And then you stepped on the floor on the way out and then the way back in. And it was like, that mopped floor stayed clean for about 15 minutes. And a lot of people would feel discouraged about that. But for me, my perspective is this. I got it mopped. And that means we're not tracking from the mudroom into the house. If I never clean the mudroom floor, then it does start coming through the doorway.
You might want to think about an Amazon rug box.
What's an Amazon rug box?
That's what I did. You take the box that came from Amazon, you lay it, cut it so that it lays all the way flat, and it's a rug that goes from my door to the kitchen sink.
Okay, I get that, but it holds moisture on the wood floor or on the cement floor.
So I put that down because I'm not taking my boots off there, and I'm banging my boots off pretty well before I go in the house. So it ends up slightly wet on the top, but within a couple of minutes with the wood fireplace going, it dries out.
Yeah.
And then my boot changing station is currently in my bathroom where there is a tile floor and I don't have to worry about the water as much.
So what I've noticed about this concrete floor is if you hold moisture down on it, it kind of it's like whatever the sealer is, the wet look sealer.
Yeah.
It kind of absorbs through that and it turns like a lighter white color. And so far that hasn't permanently like caused the equivalent of a floor cup ring, but I think leaving water on the floor is a bad idea here. So that's because I thought about cardboard and I was like, I'll just that's why I have that rug there. It's like the rug I can wash. If it gets really wet, I throw it through the washer and then I dry it and then I put it back down and then, you've seen that process. So it's been an interesting thing, just managing that. So guys, we're getting close to the end of the show. If you have questions, let me know. I have 2 starred, including that SRF one that we will hit towards the end of the show. Tuesday, my internet was jacked.
I think it's still jacked.
It's not like we're actually successfully live streaming. I could not live stream. And so I started the live stream for the Tuesday live, ran up to Nighthawk's house after Tag and John were talking, and then jumped on his Starlink because ours was jacked.
Yeah.
So it's better now. And I did a hard reset that night where I turned it off, or it was next night. I turned it off for 5 minutes and then I forgot that it was off. And then we went to like watch a show after dinner. And I was like, why is this not working? I'm like, oh yeah. So it's been off for like 4 hours. But the reason I did that was you'll get a new IP address sometimes and it fixes problems when you have weird problems. But I just had like my speed test, it showed speeds, but it was having a latency issue with the video. Yeah. And so I was like max headrooming on everybody. It was not good. And that's just our phone systems are also not built for it. Just let her mess with the cat. Chestnut's messing with the cat, and there's about to be a dog that gets butt hurt because it gets clawed in the nose by the grumpy cat. So
it's like a straight up Mexican stare off over there.
Well, it's like a 3-year-old messing with their brother. The brother's saying, "Go away, I don't want you here." And the dog is like, the 3-year-old is like, "Why? Why? Why?" That's what's going on right now. So if you hear a loud yip/cat scream, just know that everybody's fine. Chestnut deserved it. She's coming over here now. Okay, let's talk about a little bit about the cold and the infrastructure. So after being -4, he woke up with no water. Why?
Pipes frozen in multiple places, and one of the problems being that my heater in the closet wasn't on.
Yeah, so we put electric heaters. The utility closet is outside. So it's
Yes.
enclosed, but it's outside, which means it's not getting heat from the wood stove. There's an electric oil heater in there that did not come on. Why?
It was on originally, but it was also plugged into one of those, like, I don't know, thermal cube
Yeah,
things
like
where
they automatically turn on when it gets below 36 degrees.
Yeah. And apparently the thermal cube thing died. And so the heater just wasn't on. So there's, I don't know, 6 or 7 feet of pipe in there. And the cool part was the hot water heater is also in there. And so, like 2 feet away from the hot water heater, the water was cold, but it wasn't frozen because it had the residual heat coming off of that hot water heater. But everything else was just frozen solid. And I got it, I thought mostly unthawed. And then it was like,
Does unthawed mean frozen?
unthawed?
Because thawed means to defrost.
I don't know.
Sorry, I had to pick on you.
People
on that
know
one.
you know what I'm talking about. Got it at least partially unfrozen, so there should be some water going through there, but I still had nothing in the house, and it dawned on me, it was like, surely she still has water. Surely it didn't freeze in the pump house. So I go down to the pump house, and there is a brass 90 in the pump house that goes to the cabin. It's like the only brass fitting in there. And where that brass fitting is in the dirt, but it's exposed so you can still see it. And there's water around it, and all of the water is frozen. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
Do you know what conducts cold really well? Metal.
Mm-hmm.
So we did not turn off the valve at base camp going from the PEX to that outdoor spigot, which is copper. And that pipe broke too.
Yeah.
And it's 100% because there was water in it and metal conducts.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a fun repair project next week when it's warmer.
Yeah.
So, it just encourages us to have PEX all the way to that spigot.
So that's what I said, was that's just getting replaced with PEX.
Yeah.
I remember how much fun it was to get that one fitting in there the first time. So I'm not looking forward to trying to remove it without damaging copper pipe and then put another one in.
So the copper pipe's coming out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Pack Rat says PEX will survive the freezes. Their brass fittings, however, will often crack wide open. Yeah, so PEX can freeze a couple of times and it's fine. Sometimes the brass fittings freeze and they crack and you have to replace those. I've never had that happen. So I hear that from other people. I've never had that happen.
Yeah.
But it could totally happen. I also usually when I freeze my pipes, I'm dripping. And so they're not high pressure in there.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what saved me so far. I did learn that I can go down to about 15 degrees before I have to start dripping. And the reason I do is my prepper pantry is not staying warm despite the fact I have electric heaters going in there. We haven't figured out why, other than maybe because it's not insulated and it's cinder block. It's just going straight through the cinder block. But I suspect there are other holes in there that we have not found. So we've been finding and plugging holes to the outside in my prepper pantry all week long. And every time we think we've got it, it's like, nope, we don't got it. And I'm sure tonight we won't get it because it's not heating up as much as it should in there.
And I think there's also an aspect of, Tennessee is not built for stuff like this. So I think there's an aspect of that cinder block wall is now acting as a thermal battery for the cold and not the hot.
That's what I mean. It's not insulated.
Yeah.
So in here, I have cinder block on the other side of this drywall, but there's insulation and drywall
Yeah.
and moisture barrier. Out there, it's just straight up cinder block, but the basement at base camp is straight up cinder block and it doesn't have that problem. But it's
That's
built into the
also-
ground on part
yeah.
of it. Yeah. This
Most
is
of
too,
that
though.
is,
Oh, no, this isn't anymore.
yeah, that part's on anymore.
And so the pump house doesn't have that problem. It's also cinder block, but it has the foam insulation lining the entire inside.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that makes a huge difference. So, okay, we're at the end of the show. Finances for the homestead. Nothing to report. We are eating electricity though, because I'm running these heaters in places where pipes can freeze. And the rocket mass heater needs to be rebuilt, so I can't use that. So the whole purpose of the rocket mass heater is that I don't have to use it during these times. We need to rebuild that as part of the pump house redo. So I'm using electricity there. I'm actually looking forward to it getting back above 20 degrees so I don't have to run all these things. Because once we're over 20, we're pretty much fine.
Yeah.
So so from a financial standpoint, that's not great. Like the whole purpose of having wood heat, besides the fact it's superior to any other heat in existence from a comfort standpoint, is that it's also like you can regenerate it, you can regrow it, and it doesn't cost as much money as power. So that's right. Okay, let me go to the questions. First question I have is from Letty. What's the latest wild animal sightings? Have you seen anything besides birds out and about?
I've seen a bunch of songbirds like finding patches of grass, dirt to do whatever they're doing. I've seen a lot of deer and a lot of rabbit track, but no actual animals.
I have not seen any predator tracks at all on any of my walks, and I've walked the dog every day except for yesterday. We're going to walk again today. I've changed my walk from first thing in the morning to midday when it's warmer for them because I don't want them getting hurt out. And when it's like 8 degrees, dogs will go on a walk with me, but it's not really good for them because they're not used to it. Actually, the LGDs would be fine. These are not the LGDs.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen any, like usually I'll see coyote poop, or no tracks, no scat. I haven't seen bobcat tracks, nothing. I have seen same thing, just songbirds and deer and rabbits. So I guess it's because those animals actually need to keep eating. And I'm guessing that the predators are holed up somewhere where they can be as warm as possible, not eating. So my expectation is we're going to have predator pressure pretty heavy when it gets warm on Monday.
Yeah.
And that means making sure the ducks don't sleep in the pond Monday night.
Yep.
Which ought to be fun.
Well, I mean, I think feeding them at night is going to make that a lot easier. I think they'll still go to the coop.
Yeah, especially if you feed them in the coop, though we want to not be feeding them in the coop. And then Matthew says, any Airbnb recommendations for SRF? Pretty much check out Airbnb for SRF, and you can choose about any place. Read the reviews carefully. That's all I can say. We do have a list of lodging options there if you're looking for a place to rent, though, because there's Airbnb, there are some hotels around, that sort of thing. Anyway, that brings us to the end of Homestead Happenings, because I don't have any other questions. If you like the show, want to support the work we're doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerose.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Our next member webinar is in February with Sue Zoldak. It's Q&A, so we're collecting questions in advance about marketing and branding. It's going to be awesome, and it will be part of your member benefit if you are a member. Anyway, with that, guys, go out, make it a great week.